Hey BookTube friends, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to talk about 3 books that I read recently. The first one I listened to as an audiobook, and that was Inspection by Josh Malerman. Now this author is known for writing pretty scary books, and I really enjoyed Bird Box, but this one really missed the mark for me. I'm not exactly sure how to classify this. It's sort of a thriller, but it has dystopian elements to it, and I'm not really sure how to talk about this book, but we'll give it a go. So the premise is that you have these 2 towers. One tower houses the A to Z alphabet boys who are being raised by DAD, and the other tower houses the letter girls being raised by MOM. Both of these sets of children have no idea that the opposite sex even exists, and they live this very closed, controlled life. Of course, the big mystery for the story is why? Why are the adults that are in these 2 towers controlling everything and taking care of these children? Why are they conducting this sort of strange, disturbing experiment? And when I finally got that answer in this book, I was sorely disappointed. I felt like it was a lame excuse, and it actually took me 2 library loans to get through this book. So that kind of tells you how I felt about it. Because of the anonymity that he really gave a lot of these children by just giving them a letter as a name, I think that kind of filtered through to my experience with them, and so it made them seem a little bit less significant and less distinct. If you make your way to the end of this book, the ending is extremely quick. It feels very, very rushed. There is a ton of violence at the end, and I also felt like the violence in this was kind of unbelievable because you're following these characters, and the character growth, what little growth there is very slow, and then all of a sudden, you have this ending. So I was a bit surprised at that, and I can't really say that I recommend this book. I just got to a certain point in it where I wanted some answers, but it wasn't my most enjoyable read. The second book that I read recently was The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat and Other Clinical Tales by Oliver Sacks. And this book is part of my Nonfiction November TBR, and it's basically different case studies of neurological disorders. I was pretty surprised to find a lot of the stories in this book were related to migraines, and as someone who suffers from migraines, I was particularly interested in those parts. In the beginning of the book, there's actually a quote from George Eliot, who I did not know also suffered from migraines, and she says that feeling dangerously well was often for her the sign or harbinger of an attack. So this is a phenomenon that happens with a lot of neurological disorders, apparently. There's this feeling of euphoria and extra energy that happens just before an attack. That's actually not one of my pre-drome migraine symptoms that I have. Mine are less exciting. I yawn a lot, my eye starts to hurt, my vision starts to get blurry, and I wear glasses and contacts. So if my glasses don't correct my vision, I know an attack is on the horizon. And I also get very thirsty, which I'm someone who actually drinks at least 100 ounces of water a day. So if I am more thirsty than usual, that's probably a sign for me that something's about to happen. But I found that really interesting. I also found it interesting that some people who suffer from migraines actually have hallucinations, and the author actually includes some sketches from Hildegard, who was actually a nun in the 12th century who suffered from migraines. And I found that really interesting and a very mysterious part of how our brain operates. Something else that I really enjoyed about this book is how the author actually talks about the patients, because he really makes these patients real people, and some of these people you can just tell, even though they might not be aware of what is going on with their brain and the deficits that they have, There is some sadness there. There is some recognition that they have lost something, even if they can't really remember what it is. So I really appreciated the fact that he treated these people not like scientific experiments, but he treated them like people. And in the end, one of the points that Dr. Sachs makes is that neurologists and doctors a lot of times talk about these sorts of disorders in relation to the deficits that they cause, but you don't actually look at some of the gifts and some of the talents that they possess as well. So sometimes these neurological disorders could also enhance some other part of the brain, which was very interesting to see. And it was also very important, I think, at the time that this was written, for him to acknowledge that, even though it might be society's wish that people who have these neurological disorders just learn how to, hold a menial job, ride public transportation, and take care of themselves, that maybe we need to look at fostering something that they actually do enjoy or they do express interest or aptitude in. And so very quick read, but a very valuable read, very eye-opening. I didn't feel like the language in here was too scientific to where a layman like me couldn't understand what he was talking about. So very, very well done, and I would recommend that one. The last book that I listened to this week was Circe by Madeline Miller, and this was a book that I became interested in after hearing about it on Brandon's Bookshelf. And if you haven't watched Brandon's Bookshelf, you definitely should. I will link his channel in the description box, but he typically does kind of deep dive videos, and then he also does kind of those quick book reviews as well. So no matter what you're into, if you go to his channel, you will certainly find something there for you. Brandon really piqued my interest about this book because he talked about how beautiful this book was and how it was quite possibly one of the most beautiful books ever written. And I have to say, it did not disappoint. I do agree. One kind of description that came to mind as I was listening to this book and the just exquisite prose is that the wording and the narrator's voice for this book was just dripping with honey. That is how beautiful this book was. So this book obviously follows the title character, Circe, who is a Greek Titan goddess who actually discovers she is a witch. And there are a lot of myths included in the story that you're probably familiar with, but it weaves them all together into a cohesive kind of autobiographical narrative of Circe. You don't have to at all be familiar with Greek mythology to enjoy this story. That was one thing that I really enjoyed about it. And I do have some basic knowledge of most of the major characters that she talked about and some of the myths, but that is definitely not a requirement. And something else I appreciated about it is that even though you are learning about and hearing about all of these myths, it doesn't feel like she is giving you a contrived explanation for all of them. So it really flows nicely and has so many different stories that I didn't feel like there was one central story to this book. One of the main parts of the book really for me was the character development of Circe, because even though Circe is this divine witch goddess, she is very human to me, and she has all of these struggles to find her place and to kind of reconcile her beliefs and her values with her destiny. Circe is just such a beautifully tragic and ironically human character for me. This one was just wonderful. So thank you, Brandon, for the recommendation. So that is all I've read recently. If you guys have read any of these books and have any thoughts, please drop me a comment down below. I hope you are having a wonderful, splendid, tremendous, gorgeous Sunday. And thank you for watching. I hope I'll see you in the next one.